Awesome. Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to go over our new virtual learning activities, all based on Morse code. I don't think any of us on the Unruly team thought that we would go so deep into Morse code, but we have. So we're excited to share it all with you. For those of you who don't know us, I think that we've met virtually a lot of you before. My name's Lauren. I'm the marketing lead at Unruly.
Awesome. I'm Emily. I'm the education director at Unruly.
Awesome. And you've probably gotten some emails from me. I'm the one, hopefully there's a face to a name now, who's sending you all the emails. And before we get started, I'm going to put out a quick poll just so we can all get to know each other a little bit better. And the question is, have you tried, how many of you, have you tried using virtual Splats yet? So I just launched the poll. Hopefully you all see it. Awesome, we got some answers coming in. I'm just curious to see how many of you have tried it, because we'll definitely be going over today a little bit of how to get started. And hopefully you can follow along as well. If you're interested, all you need is a laptop with an internet browser. Hopefully, I think you guys all must have one since you're on Zoom right now. Or you can also do it using an iPad with our iPad app, and you don't actually, I don't believe, need internet for that. So, okay, I'm gonna end the poll and share the results. Most people have not tried using virtual Splats yet, which is awesome because we're gonna go over that today. Oops. All right, and then I'm gonna launch one more poll because I love polls. And I want to hear, what are you guys excited to learn about today? You've got using virtual Splats, which hopefully all of you will know how to do by the end of this webinar, learning about our new virtual activities and how they work, or just general strategies on student-led virtual learning. We're all about student-led learning here, so we're super excited to share some of our tips with you and hopefully learn some tips from you as well. Awesome. Okay. Nice, and we've got lots of people who have never tried Splats at all before and are brand new, which is great. All right, I'm gonna end the poll and share the results. So we've got pretty much almost basically 50-50 of people wanting to learn how to use virtual Splats and also how the new activities work. And then a big portion of people also excited to learn about strategies for student-led learning. So that's great. Okay, so let's get started. So you don't have Splats, no worries. I'm gonna let Emily take it away from here.
Awesome. So like Lauren said, the two things that you really just need are a laptop. It doesn't matter what the Bluetooth is, or a Chromebook, or an iPad. On the iPad, you're gonna download the app by typing in Unruly Splats. Just type in Unruly Splats and it'll come up in the search. For our web app, you're going to type in app.unruly-studios.com and it will take you to our web app, which we're going to be spending quite a bit of time in today.
I'm going to post in the chat if anybody wants to join us.
And then for step 2, you're going to select teacher or student for today, especially if this is the first time that you're using the app. You can just select student. It's just going to log you in as a guest and you'll be able to start coding right away. You're going to create a profile. So this is where all of your programs are going to live in the app. Doesn't matter what you name it, just know that you need to log into that one the next time you sign in. And then step 4 is just to explore and to be ready to play around with some games. All right, so much of what we're going to be talking about today, in fact, almost everything that we're going to be talking about today, is all about using Morse code with Splats. So we just released a pack of activities that you can use just with virtual Splats. If you have maybe a couple of Splats at home, you can also use this with your physical Splats as well. And it's all about sending and decoding Morse code messages using our block coding language. You will see that there are some mentions to Crash in our activity pack, and this is Crash. Crash is this lovely gorilla that is very happily worn by one of our teammates who has a gorilla suit. So you'll see him in not just this activity pack, but as well as if you checked out our music activity pack, which we'll talk about a bit at the end, he's also available in there as well. All right, so we're gonna get started. At any point, if you've got any questions, make sure to reach out in the chat And we're also going to be asking you for some things as well as we go through this. But we're going to be running through all 4 of the Morse code activities, a little bit cooking show style. So some things we're going to have available and we're not going to go through with you. But if you've got any questions, make sure to shout them out. But the basics of Morse code is it's just a series of short and long signals. It was typically done across a telegraph, but you can do this with lights or with sounds using splats. And the very basic building blocks to start, especially in activity 1, are you just need to be able to light a splat and have some delays. So these are the blocks that you're going to be using. And the Morse code alphabet looks like this. So you're combining different series of dashes, which are long, and dots, which are short, to make different letters. And that means that you can pretty easily send a whole bunch of different messages using coding, which is great. It's really awesome. So to build the dashes and dots, we're going to spend some time on how to make this a little bit easier. But this whole block of code right here is just to build one dot. So you're going to light up the splat green, pause for 0.5 seconds, then you're going to turn it off. We've included another delay afterwards just to add in some spacing between your letters. That spacing, I think there is a regulation of how long that space is supposed to be, but you can lengthen that or shorten it however you'd like. And then this is the example of how to build out dash. So this is 1.5 seconds, and it's the same process. So you're going to light up your splat as green, delay for 1.5 seconds, and then you're going to turn it off. So to create a message, you're just combining your dots and your dashes based off of what you want your alphabet to be. So just to show you what this looks like, so to send out SOS, which is S is just 3 dots, O is 3 dashes, and then S is 3 dots again. This is what it looks like if you build it as is, building out the everything straight. So we're going to spend a lot of the rest of our time today on different ways to package your code using functions to make this quite a bit easier and make it actually really easy and really fun to send messages. But I did want to show you what SOX looks like. This is what you do in the first activity, is actually build this out. And it's really cool and it's really fun, but you'll be able to build much more complex messages if we are able to use some other techniques. All right. So for activity 2, so that was all of activity 1, was basically just introducing dashes and dots and how we can use them to build messages. In activity 2, we're going to start using functions to make that a lot easier on ourselves. So taking this dot and then this dash and actually converting them into functions. So we're going to be using a dot function for the remainder of our time today, and then we're going to be using a dash function for the remainder of our time today. So I'm going to actually switch over into our web app right now to show you how this works. All right.
For those who want to follow along, feel free to hop in our web app. I linked the app for the Chrome browser there.
Great. All right, Lauren, can you still see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, so here are our dot function that I just said before. I had pre-built it so we wouldn't have to build it out together. But this is our dot function, and here's our dash function. So if we wanted to build out SOS, we know that our dot is 3 dots, is going to be 3 dots and 3 dashes for each letter. I believe S is 3 dots, right, Lauren? You're muted, Lauren, just an FYI.
S is 3 dots, yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm dragging out my 3 dots. You'll notice that I already have some other functions in here. Just don't pay attention to them yet. So building out. I have already built these functions, so I can go into my functions category and literally just drag them on out. So we've got our 3 dots for our S. Now we're going to put in our O.
And Emily, just to recap, what is a function?
A function is just a way to package your code together. So if you're going to be using something a whole bunch of times, like in this case, we're using for a dash we're using all 4 of these blocks each time that we want to do a dash. It's really helpful if we can just put that in one nice little package that we can keep reusing.
That's to avoid the scary code that you showed us before, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes it a lot easier for us. Now I'm individually dragging these out. Nice tips and tricks is you can start duplicating as well. So I'm dragging out 3 dots, 3 dashes, and I'm gonna do this again for these. All right, so now we've got 1, 2, 3. So this is our S. 1, 2, 3, here's our O. And then 1, 2, 3, here's our S again. Okay, so all of this is underneath here, underneath our when program starts block. If you'll notice underneath our short and long functions, our dash and our dot, we are actually programming all of this onto just splat 1. If we wanted to put this onto a different splat, or even later I'll mention there's different ways that we could actually have it appear on different splats, we can do that. But for the remainder of this time, I'm really just going to be focusing on splat 1. So you're now seeing our SOS play on the left side. There we go. So again, this was pretty simple, but I think the next thing the next leap that naturally happens is, okay, so we knew that S was 3 dots. It would be great if we had a whole library of all the letters already built out so that we didn't have to actually build out all 3 of those dots to send an S, or all 3 of those dashes to send an O. So the remainder of activity 2 is actually building all of this out. So taking these dots and dashes and actually converting them into letters. So I'm going to drag over here. I have them all already pre-built out here. And if you notice, we added in an extra delay after these, just because whenever you're building out pretty long messages, it's nice. It's a nice help to add in a different space, but that's completely optional. You can build them out exactly like I did here without actually adding in that extra space. All right, so here are all of our letters. Now let's try building SOS using our letters. You'll notice in order to actually build these, so for A, for example, we just dragged in our already existing dash and dot and put them and built them into this function itself. So that means that we dragged this out and we typed in, I'll just build A again. We actually dragged in our short. So we went in here, went short. And then we did long. And then again, added in that extra 1.5 second space. Again, don't have to use it unless you want to, but it can be pretty helpful. I personally really struggle with Morse code, especially if I can't see it. So I definitely need to be using a paper and pencil to decode these messages. I found that the 1.5 really helped.
And Emily, just to be clear, we're getting meta here. We're making functions of our functions.
Yeah, so we're actually nesting functions within other functions. And it's a super helpful trick. So we can do all sorts of things to make our lives easier if we do this. But I did just want to show you. So this is what it looks like. So we've now built a second A, and it just used our short function that we built before and our long function from before. And then we added in that delay. All right. I'm going to delete that. And then we're going to actually go over here and build out SOS again. So I'm going to drag out another when program starts block. And I'm going to go in here and let's see. I'm going to drag out an S.
So you'll notice also that Emily's functions that she built over there on the right-hand side, when she clicked run, those didn't run because they weren't a part of a when program starts or when splat pressed. So those are the 2 really, really important things. And maybe Emily, if you don't mind showing where those are, just like a quick tour of our virtual app.
Yeah, of course.
They're super important. Yeah.
No, thank you for reminding me about that. So yeah, so all the two main triggers for our app, so for the computer to know anything is happening, are these two blocks. So when program starts or when splat pressed. So that means that not just these functions that are out here, the computer isn't going to see them because we're not telling them to do anything with them. So we've got to recall that function in order for the computer to even know it's there. And most of the time, 99% of the time, we will be nesting things within a when splat pressed or a when program starts block. The two main differences between these blocks is basically just what are we using to tell the computer to start paying attention. So underneath when splat pressed, that means that nothing, if we press this run button, nothing is going, oh, I've got something else going on. If we've got, let me show you another fun trick. So I'm going to disable this block. So it'll still stay here. I don't have to delete anything. And then I'm actually going to disable this one over here as well. And this is a nice trick when we've got lots of different things going on. I've built a whole lot on this coding screen. And I tend to have really messy coding screens. So it's a very nice trick, especially for me. So the two main differences between these, again, are if we're pressing run or if we're clicking or stomping on a splat. So just to demonstrate this, if I light up a splat with the color green to start, when I press run, it will light up green. When I click on the splat, nothing is happening. We can drag this in here. And now whenever I click on a splat, it can light up a color green. If we wanted to have something happen when the splat is released, for example, on the virtual splats, that is just releasing your mouse click or removing your finger. If you were on a physical splat, that'd be taking your foot off. We can show you what happens with that. I was like random colors. So every time I'm releasing my mouse click, I'm lighting up a random color. We could change that to be when pressed as well. But those are the two.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, those are the two things that we're always gonna be using. And so for a lot of this, we're gonna be using when program starts, but you don't have to. We could have all this happen whenever you stomp on a splat as well.
And I was just gonna say, we definitely encourage you to explore the lights and sounds. There's a ton of fun sounds. We've got animal sounds, we've got sci-fi sounds, we've got sports sounds. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to play around with. So after the webinar, definitely dive in.
And on that note, I do just want to say you can do Morse code with sound as well. We played around with lots of different options. You can add in sound to this existing, like have the light and the sound at the same time. What you can also do is just take out all of the lights and actually just do it with sound. It's completely up to you. I prefer, again, the flashing light, but that is complete personal preference. So you can actually swap these out for any sound you'd like. You could do it just with a splat sound, or like Lauren said, we've got a bunch of other sounds. Nice short sounds that would work really well for Morse code. Okay.
Good question. If does the sound come out of the physical splats? If you have physical splats and they're connected, yes, they do. And I have a feeling that a lot of you maybe have just received your splats as well. So we can show you later on how to connect those from this screen as well.
Perfect. All right, so we now have our SOS built underneath our when program starts. Again, our SOS is using our dash and our dot that we built before. So when I press run now, let's see what happens. SOS. Okay. So fun fact, SOS is really just, SOS exists because it's the easiest thing to say in Morse code. So that's why it's the emergency signal. It's just three shorts and 3 longs. So we did it. We built SOS, and we've built it now basically in 3 different ways. So built it out manually using all of these blocks repeated over and over again. We then built functions for dashes and dots. And then we built functions within functions that we recall to actually build them with letters. So these letters, now that you have them all built out, are super duper helpful. as you're building these out and as your students are building these out, the duplicate block is your friend. I just cannot stress that enough. It looks like this is a whole lot to build, but it does not take a whole lot of time because you're just using the same things over again. So just take a look at the alphabet on one side and then copy and paste. You can do that by right clicking or 2-finger click on my computer, or pressing and holding if you're on an iPad, and then you can just hit duplicate. You can also duplicate full functions as well, and it will automatically name them as D2 in this case. You cannot have functions name the same thing, otherwise the computer would get very confused. For this one, you can also do that as well. Just duplicate the whole thing and then change around the order.
Good tip.
Good tips you learn when building out Morse code. Okay, so we're gonna hop back over into here. All right. So we built our dash and our dot, like I just said. And once you've built out dash and dot and the full alphabet, we're now getting into the fun part. So you have this full alphabet, but what are you really gonna do with it? The main purpose of the activity pack is you're building words to send to Crash, our Unruly gorilla, who has requested words. He's writing the next American novel, of course. And he has requested these words. So you're actually gonna be building out these words in Morse code to send to Crash. And in activity 4, you will be able to put those in. You'll get a really great Mad Lib, and we're gonna go over that too. So I think it would be really great if we could get some words from you all, and we can build them out in the coding screen on the next page.
All right, so everyone send in your comments in the chat. What words should we build? And also, Melanie had a really good question of how do you save your program. So Melanie, don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you. We will go over this once we hop back into the coding screen because that's an awesome question.
Yep. So let's start off with place. I can start building that right now. So if you want to submit some words for that, and I'll just show you how to build it.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna go with maybe Hawaii. That sounds great right now, from Teresa. Thanks for the submission.
Much better than New England. Okay. Something important. So we have this outlined in the activity pack. There are a few different things you can do if you want to play a whole bunch of letters at once, or a whole bunch of words at once. So we've got SOS built in here. And what I was just going to do is I was just going to delete it, and I was going to build Hawaii in this place. What you can also do is you can build out all of them. You just will need to blink through all of them on one splat. The other option, which I'm just going to show you a peek of in the activity pack, is if you wanted to build multiple words, you can actually set those words to, or you can actually set variables so that your words all play on different splats. And so I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm not going to get into this right now, but I do want to show you. So if you did want your different words to play on different splats, whenever you're underneath when, you would need to do it under when splat is pressed, and you just need to set your splat number and put splat number in the place where your splat, when you had written the 1 or the 2, everywhere else. And this is just telling the computer to put it on whatever you designate as a splat number. And in that case, you can make sure that your dash and your dot have the right splat in them. So as long as dash and dot are updated, you don't need to do anything with the rest of your alphabet. And we can do that all in here. Again, a lot of times you can just ignore this. You don't have to do this, but it is a really fun trick. And a lot of students will ask this question. So just for your reference, I did want to show you that.
And a variable is just a label, essentially. So we won't get into it now, but if you have questions about variables and functions, I'm going to do a plug for our Splats 102 webinar that Emily and I did a few weeks ago. If you're interested in getting that, then just email me and I can send that to you, because she goes all into what variables and functions are and talks a lot about that.
Yep. So yeah, just a fun trick if you want to put your words onto different splats. For the remainder of our time today, we're not going to put them onto different splats. So we're going to be, again, I'm just going to show you what the other option is. So we're going to be building them like this, where we can either put a delay in between our words or just delete our words and just have them appear on one splat. All right, hopping back in. So let's build out Hawaii. So I'm going to go in here. Again, I can copy and paste, but it will duplicate whatever function I had out before. So I'm going to save that one.
And then while we're waiting, I think the next one was, if I'm not mistaken, a plural noun. So if people want to start commenting in the chat, what's a plural noun that we can use? Nice. All right, while people do that, Emily, did you want to go through how to save your program?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Here's what Hawaii looks like, by the way. And it is blinking out right now. You're gonna go click on this file folder right here and go underneath Save My Project. I've got this saved as Morse code functions because I had pre-built all of them before, but I'm actually gonna go in and maybe I wanna save specifically that this is, or just update this. So that's what I'll show you first. So I'm just gonna hit save and this will save it directly as is. It's gonna override the last file that I had in that space. What I can also do is I can go in, save my project, and just delete this name and rename it something else. I do want to also name that if you are working on a Chromebook or a computer, you can export your files. So you can download and share them. I'm sorry if you are on an iPad, you cannot do this. So make sure that whatever device you're working on is the one that you're going to stay on for sure. But yeah, so what you're going to do to export is you're just going to click export and a window will pop up, or it'll directly download if you're on my computer. And it is downloaded right down here. And what I can do, this is going to freak everybody out. We're just going to do it. So I'm going to press this bottom right button and it's going to clear my entire coding screen. And then I'm going to hit create a project, import my project. And I'm going to click my Morse code functions text file. And boom, we've got it back on our screen, just as it was.
Nice.
Another fun fact, so say that you do accidentally hit this button and you did not download and save, you can press an undo button and it will bring everything back.
I definitely need that because I've got a notoriously slippery finger and slippery hands, really. I drop everything also. So the undo button is definitely necessary.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm going to, let's build at least one more word. So we built out our Hawaii. What else? What else we've got?
We've got teachers, cats. I'll let you, let's go with cats since your cat is maybe the guest of honor in the background.
Oh yeah, she's living it up. She loves that we are at home. All right, so we've got cats. And I am just dragging these off and saving them on the screen because we're going to be using them later. But students can be writing this down on a piece of paper or directly in that PDF. So we've got our cats, we'll link that out. What other words do we want to build?
Ooh, this one's a good one. Famous person. This will be the last one. And Sandra does have some questions about sharing things with an iPad. But I do believe that we're working on a way to be able to export files for an iPad, but it's not possible right now.
Right.
She says it seems to be there, which would be awesome. So we'll get back to you, Sandra, on that. If so, you've just made our day. All right. We've got Mr. Rogers. Everyone loves Mr. Rogers.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to go in and do it again. So let's do an M. Now what we can do here is I'm actually going to add in an extra delay just to put in the space between the Mr. But you don't have to if you don't want to. G. E. Just testing my alphabet. There we go. Now we got Mr. Rogers. And again, we can just have these on the screen. They're not connected to anything, so we can just have them hanging out there. Perfect. So now that we've gotten these built out, we are testing them on the side just to make sure everything is working. These words, you can send them to us, and we would love to get different Mad Lib messages from all of you, maybe make up some new ones with the words that your students choose. So please, if you've got some, you can either download your file or just send us directly words to educators@unruly-studios.com. But if you don't do that, your students will still be able to use all of these words just to know what Crash was up to. So if we go back in here, Activity 4 is all about using these words that your students have built. So there is a coded message that is linked directly in Activity 4, and you can either watch the video or we've also got the message decoded down here. And once you put in that super secret message, there is a Mad Lib that there's a password to. So that's what is linked on the bottom of the first page of Activity 4. And then once you type in that password, there is then a Mad Lib. So students can then enter in their words that they had sent over before.
And we have a couple questions. So question from Greg, would you ever use different color for dots and dashes?
That would be a wonderful idea and a great thing to encourage kids to do. That would be an excellent way to help out students that are struggling, especially to differentiate between the two. So I think that's a great idea. Awesome. Maybe not authentically Morse code, but I don't think it matters.
And if you want to send your student projects to Crash, I'm going to type in the email in the chat, but it will also be on the PDF that we send to you at the end of the webinar. So don't worry, you'll have it.
It actually, Lauren, it'll be on our website. The PDF is directly for students. So it'll be on our website if you'd like to send it to us.
Awesome. Yeah, education@unruly-studios.com.
Any other questions specifically about all these things?
Awesome. And for those who maybe don't have any experience with coding, I know there's a couple people who mentioned that they were totally brand new. That's awesome. We have a couple of webinars, Splats 101, which is, who would have thought it, before Splats 102. It goes back to the very, very basics of how to use our web app. And it kind of goes through a tutorial of what each section does. So if you want to recap, then please feel free to check those out. Those are on our website. If you go under the top tab of webinars, you'll see it there.
Perfect.
Awesome. Cool. So I'd love, if you guys know how to raise your hands, I would love to know how many of you have tried our musical Splats MIDI activity pack. We got one person, a couple people. Nice, Anne's tried it. Awesome. I hope you liked it. So while the Morse code activities are, Emily would say, probably geared towards middle school, but still still possible for elementary school. Our musical splats activity pack doesn't have any functions in it, so it's great for beginners. So for elementary school students who are just starting to dip their toes into block coding, and it's also really fun because students get to create their own musical creations with splats. And again, this is all possible with virtual splats on our web app, so it's totally free. You don't need physical splats at all to do it. And while we're here, we did have one question, Emily, about connecting splats. So for those people who just got physical splats and want to know how to connect them to our web app, we can certainly show you that too.
Yeah, so really quickly, it's super easy. I'm not gonna get up and grab my splats, but it's super easy to do. So when you're on the coding screen, you'll notice that each of these virtual splats have a plus sign next to them. And that's a plus sign to connect your physical splats. This is the same on an iPad and on a Chromebook. But the difference in the web app / the Chromebook is that it's going to bring up this connection window, and any splats that are turned on will appear in here. And so you can just click on them and then hit pair. You're going to only, of course, pair one at a time. So if you were connecting 2 splats, you would do that separately for each. And then for iPad, it's ultra easy. You just flip on your splats and then press the plus sign, and they will connect right away. You will know that your splats are connected when that spinning red light goes away. So when you turn them on, they got a spinning red light, that will go away, and it will instead light up with a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 5 and however many you connect, and that is its splat number. So if you press that ID button, you'll be able to tell which splat is which. That's the same for our virtual splats as well.
Awesome trick. And does anybody else have any other questions? We're going to launch a poll soon because I'm curious to know your thoughts. Right. So I'm going to launch our next poll. And I'm just curious, feel free to be totally honest. I want to know if you guys would use these activities with your kids at home or with your students. Are these the right level or a bit too advanced, too easy? Maybe you don't like them for another reason or you wouldn't use them for another reason, or you're just not sure yet and you're still thinking. Let us know. I love these polls because it's such a great way to just get to know, what you guys want to hear about, and so that we can do that for next time too. Awesome. So I'm going to end the poll soon. Get your answers in, please. Awesome. So looks like people aren't quite sure yet, but other people think that this is about the right level, which is awesome. So one thing that Emily always tells teachers during their implementation is a lot of our activities are aligned to CSTA standards for a certain grade, but that doesn't necessarily mean, maybe your students are just getting started, or maybe you have younger students who are super advanced. So feel free to use those as a guideline, but in general, I think both of these, both the musical splats activity and the Morse code activity are great for, what would you say, Emily, which grades?
I would say Morse code, definitely for middle school. And then for the musical splats activity, that's got a pretty big range because a lot of it is open-ended based off of what students want to create. So we've gotten some great drum machines from some pretty young elementary schoolers. So I would say definitely elementary school for musical splats, and then depending on familiarity with functions, middle school.
Awesome. And if anybody wants me to send them the musical splats activity pack, it is on our website, but feel free to shoot me an email and I can also send it directly to you. And I'll post in the chat the link where you can get it.
Right.
All right.
So we've gone over a whole bunch of things today, but in general, some tips and tricks for just doing coding in general at home. I think we would love to hear from you and some things that you're finding that are working really well. But I know for us, it's been really important to keep a lot of the things that we really love about coding in the classroom and making sure that that's still able to trickle through as much as possible in remote learning. So for me, a lot of times that means still doing all those great things, like making sure that students are leading the learning, if students have a lot of choice and options, because especially for Splats, there's a lot of different points of entry in terms of like what might motivate a student to get really into something. So we like to make sure that those things definitely trickle through. And then also never underestimating the basics. I think a lot of times just making sure the basics of making sure that technology is available and that it works is super duper important.
Awesome. And we forgot to say, the best part about the Musical Splats activity pack is that if you send your students' work to us, then our Unruly gorilla, I was about to say our coworker with a gorilla suit, but that's not as fun, will dance to it on video and we will send it to you. So we had a full class of grade 2 students from Hawaii actually send us their musical creations, and it was super fun to make videos and then send it back to the class. So we would love to get your students' creations, so feel free to send that to us. Awesome. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or any other tips that you've learned, even if you have tips, you know, it's kind of hard to count the weeks now, how long this has been going on, but I know a lot of people have learned things throughout these last few weeks and months. So if you have any great tips that you want to share, feel free to put them in the chat. You know, I know a lot of folks are having a hard time even connecting with some other students and keeping them engaged. So we would love to hear, you know, what you have to say about that as well. Awesome. And then one question, the Morse Code activity PDF is on our website. Actually, it might not be up yet. I think we're just releasing it today. So good question. It's not up yet. I am going to send the link to it tomorrow. And I'm also going to send the link to this webinar recording if you guys want to go through it again, or send it to anybody else. Feel free to do that as well. Awesome. So we had a couple people who emailed us questions ahead of time, so I'll go through those. And if anybody else has any questions about anything virtual coding or, you know, about our activities or anything really, just feel free to type it in the chat and we'll answer it live. Awesome. So one question that somebody had was, is there a way for students to send the code to run on physical Splats so that she could show them remotely? So the answer is, if you're on a Chromebook, yes, because they can export the code and send it to you. If you're on an iPad, the workaround that I've seen, and this is true for the group of grade 2 students who actually sent us their code for Crash to Dance to for the musical Splats, is they did a recording on their iPad. So in this case, each student had their own iPad at home, so they were able to build the code on their iPad and then do a screen recording and then send that screen recording to their teacher. And so that's sort of the workaround. And then the teacher would have to rebuild that code in their iPad and then connect it to a Splat, and then could show them actually on video what happens to the actual physical Splats if you have Splats at home. One other fun idea that we had was, if you want to get super open-ended with it, students can actually create you know, physical games for you to do, and then you can do them on video so that your students are getting you moving, which is kind of fun. Awesome. Okay, another question we had was, how does it relate to content standards? And I'll let you answer that, Emily.
Yes. So in general, almost all of our lessons are written with the CSTA standards in mind, specifically programming and algorithms. For Morse code, it meets a big chunk of those standards. We didn't actually publish the alignments. And that was intentional because this PDF is intended to be sent directly to your students. And in general, I want to say the cutoffs for elementary school, we get this question a lot, is for elementary school versus middle school, is typically around a few checkpoints. So variables are the main checkpoint from basically around the 3 through 5 standards. So those are typically introduced in grades 3 through 5. And then functions become a big part once you get into the 6th grade cutoff. So those are in the 6 through 8 category for CSTA standards. Again, it varies a little bit depending on whatever specific standard sets you're using. Most state standard sets are based off of CSTA. So that's why we chose them. So if you've got any specific questions about standards, feel free to shoot me as an email as well, or email Lauren. She can also forward it over to me. But happy to answer those questions as well.
Awesome. And then one other question that we got earlier is, does the app run on a smartphone? Great question. It does not. So the only thing that you need to use Virtual Splats is either an iPad or a Chromebook, or just any laptop that has access to the internet and a Chrome browser. That's it. If you want to use the physical Splats with a Chromebook, it will need Bluetooth 4.2. But if you're don't have physical Splats or aren't planning on connecting into physical Splats, you don't need Bluetooth. Awesome. Any other last questions? I think we're pretty much done the webinar. But if anybody has any last questions, feel free to hit us up in the chat. I'll stay online for a minute or so after we say goodbye to everybody. But we really appreciate everybody joining us today. We hope that this was helpful, and hopefully everybody who said they don't know how to use Virtual Splats can now say, hey, I know how to use Virtual Splats. Oh, we have one question. Is it easy to unpair and connect to another device? Good question.
Flip your Splat off and on again.
Yeah, it's really easy.
Way. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. And oh, for those of you who got Splats through a grant, we definitely want to hear from you. You're going to be getting lots of emails and exciting updates from us on how to get started. So we really want to hear about how it's been going so far. So feel free to email me just to honestly let me know how it's going. I'd love to hear from you. Honestly, these updates make my day. We got one message from somebody on a webinar, one of our last webinars, who left and then made an awesome game with his son, and then he sent it to me, and it was really awesome. I shared it with the rest of the team, and everyone got super excited. So I love to hear from you guys. Please give me a shout. Haven't received them yet, don't worry, they're on their way. You won't receive an email when they're shipped, but typically it'll be about 5 business days to get to you. Awesome. This idea would work well with Breakout EDU. Awesome. Sounds cool. Yeah, if you guys have any other ideas too about activities, or if you have an idea about a game but you're not sure how to code it, also feel free to let us know, and we're happy to help you. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. Feel free to take off. I'm going to stay here and see if we can answer some more questions if anyone has any lingering questions, but thanks so much for joining. It's always fun to have you guys on. Bye, Teresa. Bye, Doug. Thanks for coming.
Hi, everyone.
Take care. Emily, you baking anything today?
I don't think so. We did a lot of damage on those chocolate chip cookies, so we need some breaks.
I will say I also did a lot of damage on your chocolate chip cookies. Really appreciate those.
Yeah, I had to go and deliver them to others. They can't stay in my house.
Okay, we got a couple more questions. It's like I gotta scroll here. Nice. Do you think the output from the iPad could be sent to the computer version and run that way? I'm not sure about that. You know what, Sandra, why don't I connect with you after the webinar, and we can reach out to our development team and then see maybe if there's a workaround. But as far as I know, right now, there's no way to export games on an iPad, but we can certainly see if there's some workarounds for you. I know we're working on it, so we know that it's a feature that definitely we want to have for you guys. Cool. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we're going to sign off. Thanks so much, everyone. Oh, is there a possibility to export code from an iPad to a robot? No.
So to export the code so that it would just run directly on the Splat? Is that what that question is? So that you wouldn't need the device? If that is the question, not currently. But in a way, if you are using an iPad and you are using the sound recording option, that is technically what is happening. You are exporting that code and it is running directly on the Splat. But otherwise, you cannot do that.
Okay, awesome. Hope that answers your question, Abia. All right, if there's no other questions, we're gonna get going. Awesome, that answered her question. Good, thanks so much, Abia. And thanks everyone for joining. It was great to chat with you guys and hear about what you guys are up to wherever you are in the US, Canada, or the world. We got a couple people who joined us from outside US and Canada, which is always fun. All right, take care everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.